This is Philadelphia, the commercial nerve center of Pennsylvania, the old capital of the United States of America. Philadelphia, apart from housing the historical Liberty Bell that symbolizes the end of slave trade in the U.S., also houses the office of the governor of Pennsylvania, Mr. Edward Rendell. The governor, Edward Rendell, is a one personality who doesn't go about with a retinue of aides or armed security men as we have here. Crime Fighters had an exclusive chat with the governor in his office in Philadelphia during our trip to the US.
Governor Rendell, let me ask you this. A day-to-day running of the states, how do you go through it? Because I ask this question again because of the typical nature of our governors in Nigeria, where they have to attend to political meetings, they have to attend to states, official meeting, they have to attend to the federal presidential meeting, they have to attend to the people that voted them in, they have to go back to their constituency to meet the people. How do you cope with all of this?
Well, it's a very difficult job meeting all the demands, and the first thing you need is to select a group of people around you, the best and most talented and dedicated women and men that you can find. If you can do that, the rest becomes much easier. There's no way I can handle all of the meetings that come to me, requests from outside groups and organizations. The Chamber of Commerce wants to meet with me about business taxes. The Arts Council wants to meet with me about funding for the arts. The road builders want to meet with me about putting more money into highways.
Yeah.
There's no way I can take all those meetings. My staff will, that I work long and hard, and I try to take as many meetings personally as I can. But you need dedicated people to be your commissioners, your secretaries, secretaries of these departments, to head them up so they can handle the meetings for you and crystallize them. Often what I will do, if an outside group wants a meeting, and it really is a meeting that, let's say, the Secretary of Labor and the Secretary of Commerce should attend to, I will greet the group. I will have the Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Commerce stay in the room. Then I will go and maybe go to another meeting. And then before this meeting's over, I'll come back and I'll say, okay, what progress have you made? And sometimes they'll have made progress up to a certain line, but a decision has to be made, and only the governor can make that decision. The two secretaries will have framed the issue for me. They'll say, well, Governor, these folks think that we should raise the gas tax. Are you in favor of raising the gas tax? And I'll say, as I did last year, no, gas prices are too high right now. If they moderate and come down, we'll revisit the issue. So that's the way you have to do it. You have to have a great staff, great appointments, and you have to be able to marshal your own time as much as you can. And I wind up doing my paperwork, reading all the memos and all the letters that come in, usually from 10 o'clock at night to about 1 o'clock at night, because I try to save the day for as many meetings, just returning phone calls. It's a burden to return phone calls, but you have to do it. You have to stay in touch with the community that elects you, the business community, the labor community, all of the specialists, the legislature. I have to get my programs through the legislature or they're no good.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to ask now.
Right. So I have to take care
I know the relationship between the governor and the legislature, especially your state's legislature, can be that feisty.
It can be very feisty. It can be very controversial at times. And
yeah.
American politics has really devolved into too much partisanship. And we spend so much time attacking each other, the Democrats and the Republicans, that sometimes we lose track of what our original mission was to serve the people. Now, both houses of the Pennsylvania legislature are Republican controlled.
Yeah.
I am a Democrat. So that means there's always a little bit of political tension in the House and the Senate, but with the members as well.
Okay. And
I try to take, we kid around, the care and feeding of the members. So if the members have problems, I want them to bring them to me, and I try to resolve them. I can't resolve all of them, because many of the problems are requests for money, and obviously we have a limited pie of money. But I try my best to be fair. I try my best to do economic development and environmental policy and educational policy in a nonpartisan way. So I've tried to earn the trust of many of the members. Now that has worked to a degree because I've been very lucky. I've gotten my 7 major campaign promises. I've gotten them all enacted in the legislature.
7.
I made 7 basic campaign promises, and I got them all enacted. I had to compromise on many of them, but I got them through, and now we're in the process of implementing them, of making sure that we take the legislation and turn it into a working, successful reality.
Okay. Let's go to the main focus of this interview, which has to do with transparency. We've talked about your relationship with the legislator. What is your approach to transparency? What's the approach to transparency in government in Pennsylvania?
Tell me what you mean by transparency.
Well, let me say this. I'm happy you're putting the question back to me. There's this issue that comes up all the time that I'm sure you are aware of the oil for food in the UN,
Right.
and you're also aware of this term delay issue where he went for several trips,
Right.
and that has been a lot of
Criticized,
criticized. Now that's what we're talking about. Some government officials or governors, as it were, or politicians would say they got gifts as a result of X, Y, Z,
Right.
and their citizens are caught in between this. For example, corporations in Philadelphia could lobby you for their own benefit. And if you as a governor got a gift from them,
Right.
you may have gotten a gift on a different reason, but they
It
could see
looks
such,
bad.
yeah,
It has an appearance of impropriety.
yeah.
As a result, I try to take no gifts worth more than $100. If we get a gift that's in excess of $100, it gets reported, and we don't use it. We'll
Okay.
give it to the benefit of the state. So let's assume it's a beautiful vase that anyone, let's say it's the Chinese ambassador, gives me a beautiful vase. Well, if it's more than $100, I will not keep it. I will dedicate it to the governor's residence to be
Okay.
used by former, future
So
governors,
governors.
to be enjoyed by people, not for something that I would keep. So we try to do that as well, and it's very, very hard in America because we don't publicly fund our campaigns. The only campaign that we publicly fund is the presidential general election.
Okay.
But even during the primaries, big businesses, individuals can give money to candidates. Now, what I try to do, and the press is very cynical, but let's say there are 3 businessmen, A, B, and C.
Yeah.
They all want to contribute to my campaign because they believe I would be good for business in Pennsylvania. I'm going to start a lot of economic development. We're all going to grow. So I take campaign contributions from A, B, and C. Now, it comes time, let's say you get elected governor,
Yeah.
and A, B, and C want to do business with the state.
Yes, state, exactly.
Okay. What I will give to my contributors is they have the ability to come in and speak to me about their proposal. But I tell them, you have to go through the regular process, and that's in Pennsylvania, either low bid process or an RFP, request for proposals, where they send it in, and people who never gave me a dime are eligible to go through that process. And then the applications are judged on their merit. But I will see them, I will explain what's expected of them, but they get no extra favors. Now, sometimes people who've contributed money to my campaign get business, but sometimes they don't. And the press is very cynical, but I keep trying to tell the press, I show them examples of let's say when I was mayor of Philadelphia, the biggest single contract we gave out was for the airport, retail, and commercial business. Philadelphia Airport is a huge place. Biggest single contract in terms of value. There were 3 bidders. 2 of the 3 bidders were represented, they were groups with people who had contributed a lot of money to my campaign. The 3rd group was from Massachusetts. They had never contributed a dime to my campaign. They were awarded the contract because they had the best bid at the best price, the best minority participation. Everything about it was the best. So that was an instance where the biggest contract we gave went to someone who never contributed over people who contributed a lot of money. And so I will stand on my record and show that, yes, people who give money to the campaign get business.
I'll take you back to when you were mayor. You've talked
Sure.
about it, and I also read about it. And there were a lot of things you accomplished as a mayor which includes the implementation of a new revenue generation initiative. How were you able to accomplish this? You just told me one of such instances.
Sure.
Because you see, we ask this question so that our governors can also learn from this interview.
My biggest challenge as mayor, and it's repeated itself as governor. As mayor, I inherited a situation where we had a $250 million deficit on a $2.3 billion budget, almost 10% deficit, one of the highest in the history of American cities. I went in and I knew we couldn't raise taxes because Philadelphia was a very high tax city to begin with. I knew we couldn't lay a lot of people off because if we laid a lot of people off, city services like police and fire and sanitation would drop so low that that would drive people out of the city. So I knew we had to save money and generate money. We found every nickel of waste in the budget and got it out of the budget. We started doing things in a more business-like fashion.
Can I say business? Government is run like a business venture.
It can't always be run like a business venture because the bottom line is we have to make some decisions that aren't based on dollars and cents. Okay. We have to make some decisions for the care of our people. So does it cost us too much money to provide health care to our people? Yes, it does. Is it worth saving money by cutting people off of health care and saying you're on your own? Of course not. Okay. That would be wrong. So you can't always run government like a business, but can you apply business principles? I'll give you an example, simple little example. When I became mayor, we collect trash. The city trash trucks, and Philadelphia's a city of a million and a half people. So it's a big, big city. We used to do the routes for the trash trucks by hand. You know, someone would sit down and plan them. We switched to computer, use technology. By charting better routes, the computer managed to save us millions of dollars. And we were able to, through attrition, lay off 9 managers and save another $1 million. And then we went out and bought bigger trash trucks. Why do we buy bigger trash trucks? Because we found it was uneconomical to have the small trucks collect trash, because once or twice a day they had to go all the way from their route over here to the dump, the city dump, to dump the trash. And that took them about an hour to get over here, then an hour to get back to their route. By buying bigger trucks, they didn't have to stop in the middle of the day. They just went to the dump at the end of the day. So all told, we're collecting trash better and we save $5-6 million a year. Now when I became governor, because of the recession in 2001 and 2002, I inherited a $1 billion deficit here. Okay. So we had to make the same type of cuts, and we've cut $400 million out of the cost of the operation of the government, not programs. Let me give you a couple of examples. When I became governor, I found that we were trading in our cars when they reached 65,000 miles. Now, just by extending that to 80,000 miles, we saved $3.5 million a year. When I became governor, I found we had 2,700 contracts for office equipment. We had contracts with all these little places all over the state. We did something called strategic sourcing, which really means we took those 2,700 contracts and we gave it to one company. Okay. Saved $11 million on the contract. We were able to close down about 19 warehouses and save another $3 million, $14 million a year. Little things like that. When I got here, I found that we had hundreds and hundreds of these SUVs. Okay. Very few of them were necessary. Some of them are necessary, the forest rangers who go on dirt roads, but most of them were being used by people just to commute to and from work. We made everyone turn in their SUVs for small sedans, and we saved $2 million in gas. All told, by doing things like that, which we were able to render savings, $400 million a year, without hurting any programs. So that's what I mean about running government as a business. Okay. You can save money, be more productive, cut out waste, and that's found money. That's enabled, our savings has enabled me to be one of the few states in America not to cut people off of health care.
What are you doing to ensure that African leaders, or let me be selfish now.
Sure.
I want to restrict it to Nigeria. Are you doing anything to come over or to invite some of our governors to study your successes so far, the way you've been able to, um, you know, run Pennsylvania as a mayor, as a governor? Because it's a success story as far as I'm concerned, in terms of revenue generation, keeping your people happy, making their programs, you know.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. The best program we ever had in that regard, I have to go back to my time as mayor. When it became clear that Nelson Mandela and his party was going to take over the government of South Africa, before they did,
Yeah.
Mr. de Klerk, who was a great man in his own right, he was still the prime minister or the premier. When it came clear that Mandela was going to take over, the union, I forget the name of the party, I think, well, whatever.
Yeah,
Union of-
ANC.
ANC.
Yeah.
The ANC contacted me. I don't know how they were referred to me, maybe by the State Department. And they said, we would like to send over some people to train with your police commissioner, with your public works commissioner, et cetera, so that they can be ready when the time comes to take over these departments. And we said, yes, absolutely. And we had for almost a year ANC officials. So Mr. Mandela knew who was going to be his public works director. Well, he spent 10 months, I think it was, with our public works director, day after day after day, going to all the meetings, looking at all the issues. It was very valuable to the ANC and to the country of South Africa. It also was beneficial to us, because when people are with you, you're always on your toes. You know,
Yeah.
you want to do your own job better to show them. So I would love to duplicate that or replicate that program again here in Pennsylvania. Because, you know, there's an old saying in government, there are no new ideas.
Yeah.
Everybody borrows from everybody else. When I was mayor, and even now as governor, I read all these trade magazines. It's interesting. I don't have time to read them on a day-to-day basis, but I would pile up articles on different things that other states were doing or other cities were doing. And I'd have a pile like this. And whenever I'd take a long plane flight,
Yeah.
I would bring them all with me, and I would read them. And the ones that I thought could be applied to Pennsylvania, I put a note on it and say, Donna Cooper, she's the policy director,
Okay.
see me when I get back about this issue. And we have borrowed from other states in America,
America.
just like, you know, other states have borrowed from us. And we have borrowed a couple of things that I saw that were interesting that the Canadian government was doing. So everybody borrows from everybody. So we would be happy in Pennsylvania through the department to replicate what we did with the ANC and with President Mandela. And, you know, it was a very wonderful day when the vote was taken in South Africa. I was still mayor, and we had 5 polling places in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
And it was unbelievable to see the people go to the polls. And, you know, the ANC took over, and there was no confusion. There was no, I mean, they didn't miss a beat. So we would love to do that. And as I said, you know, we're not smug enough to think that we have all the answers. And I guarantee you, if you send people over, we'll learn from them, you know, as they learn from us. But we would love to do that. I never understood why we didn't do more of that. And again, we would love to do it because it helps us begin the process of more trade. I think Africa, because of its natural resources, is.
And what are you doing to get your Pennsylvanians to come to Nigeria to invest?
We have some representatives, trade representatives in Africa. They don't do as good a job as I'd like to see, but we're going to work on that because I think Africa is going to be a very, very important part of the 21st century in the world.